Hello, I am Wolf of the Sea, and today we're going to be covering my favorite scouting locations on the various maps. We're going to be starting at the top and working our way all the way down to HPG Manifold. I will have them both available as in separate videos on demand, or if you want them all in one video with convenient little links to pick which one you want. We're going to start off on Forest Colony, which has one of my favorite scouting locations of all time. Two of them, actually. Let's see if it decides to work this time. Oh, it's decided to work this time. Last time I was in here, we had an endless connecting thing going here, so we could move around but couldn't access menus or do really have a good video. Anyways, first thing what I'm going to do is go straight up C4, and we're going to go to the C3 corner near that Atlas Alpha over there. Alpha, simply because I haven't targeted any other mechs. We're going to take a right as if heading to B4. We're going to go up here, go through these trees, jump off that ledge here, and land on this right here. This right here is one of my favorite scouting locations. Brief jump jets give you a view of pretty much the entire map, including the water. If you have ECM, you're very hard to see unless they know to look for you. And this little ridge right here helps prevent sniper fire from hitting you if they do spot you. Brief jump jet up, see enemy force, back up, maybe jump jet in a slightly different location next time. Also, if you feel this is a very safe location, and if you're feeling particularly adventurous, you can climb up here, and at this little ridge right here, you can get a peek into the pickle factory there, as you can see from there. That is my absolute favorite scouting location, and if you have seismic, you can also keep an eye on the cave. And that covers almost every single approach that your team can get. The enemy team can get if your team's holding up in the archways or even all the way back there. It's a very quick escape back to your teammates, and now we're going to move on. My favorite scouting location from the enemy side is a bit more dangerous. You can actually go to this same spot here. Typically I like to be a little further back right here rather than right up at the front. You can cover the cave on seismic as well. You have a very good view of enemy movements, and if you pop up to the ridge here, you can take a look and see how they have their forces deployed. However, it is a bit more dangerous in case you run into sniper fire. If you're looking at safe scouting locations for your team, we'll hold up in here. It's very safe using these trees as cover to kind of pop out and get a look, and typically you fall back behind this so they can't shoot at you or rain alarms on you. If you're simply watching the cave on seismic, and this holds true on Forest Colony Snow as well, there's a little ledge that I was just on, right there, that you can watch the cave perfectly from, and you're nestled away from any movement up on top coming in. If you nestle in right here, I'll go third person. Well, of course third person screwed me up. Never go third person while scouting. It's typically more harm than it's worth. Now we're going to go to perhaps one of the most devious scouting locations that I was actually did not discover on my own. We're going to come right up here on top of the crane. Be careful not to go too far back. That over there is out of bounds, as well as that ledge. That ledge is out of bounds. Do not jump up there. Or if you're actually afraid this might be too bad of a scouting spot or too exposed, what you can do is something extremely similar, just a little less jump jet involved. Land right on here. You're a little harder to spot, and you've got basically the same view at a slightly lower angle. And as you can see from here, you can spot pretty well around the corner. You can spot basically any sniper movement out here and keep a great eye on the water. This does not cover the cave, and you get very little warning if they push out of the arches. But generally, that's what you have a team hold up there, and they'll be watching for that while you cover all the various side approaches. If you're actually assaulting, things get very dangerous. Mostly because to scout enemy mechs, if they're fortified in, say, the archway, you actually have to get lines of sight on them. And if they're holed up in the archway, that can be hard to do. I personally like just going up here, turning, jumping off, and you can get a decent clear view of pretty much the entire map. You do not want to do that if they have snipers posted up on this ridge, which it will be very evident very quickly if they do. That's pretty much it for Forest Colony besides the water, and scouting the water can be very, very dangerous at times. Typically, if you're scouting the water, you want to hole up on some corner with cover, like say over here, except for this is too commonly a low spot. You actually want to kind of hole up behind this rock instead. It's a little further back, and you still offer a great view of the boat. You can see if they're pushing, and it even offers a little bit of movement back on the enemy side of the field if you pop out for long enough. Remember not to stand still when scouting. Pop out, pop back into cover. Never stop. And that's it for Forest Colony. Forest Colony, snow is exactly the same thing. Jump back into the testing grounds. Frozen City. Frozen City can be a little bit of a tricky one to scout, simply because you have to be careful about exposing yourself to enemy fire. Most of your scouting will take place across the dropship. Saddle there is simply one of the most contested points, or even most teams hole up on either side. And if you spot a push, it's very easy to do so from the saddle. The only place you have to worry about is the cave and generally, and if you have seismic, you can cover the cave pretty easily. From this side, a lot of what you do, come up here towards the edge, go run alongside the dropship, and jump up. And as you can see, you have a clear view there all the way down. I jumped a little farther over than I should have. And you can actually do the same thing in return. You have a little bit of cover here, don't get as high, but you can still get that same view of all the enemy mechs. Typically, you actually want to be dropping back a little, so you drop back behind the dropship rather than in front. And this is just really a matter of practice. You get up here, turn it slightly to the back, and you can see most of the force deployments that happen. If you're simply watching the cave for seismic, there's a nice huddle up place right here that is perfect for watching the cave on seismic. But you do have to watch out for smart enemy snipers who can see that. From the enemy side, it's very, very similar. You want to be doing jump jet strafing runs above. Come right in here, come across this building, turn left. You got a clear line of sight all the way in there. Problem is, this does expose you to a bit of sniper fire if they have really good snipers at shooting spiders out of the air. Or Jenners, or fire starters. Or I suppose Raven 4Xs. And basically the same thing up. Make sure you jump slightly away from the dropship and you can get a clear view on their disposition. If you fall back towards right here and you have seismic sensor, you have a good sight range on anything coming through the cave. Or even if you want to play just a little bit safer, you can be right at this corner here. And you get seismic readings there, and you obviously want to point your legs away like this and be ready to run to the side the second you see a mech appear in front of you. These are some seismic tips for scouting. You do not want to scout the C2 cave, C2 area, and you never ever go inside the tunnel. Never. Never. If you're scouting, going inside the tunnel is suicide. If they have enemy mechs in there, you can be caught in a very enclosed location, which is bad for mechs that rely on speed. In the event that your team is unable to find them simply by going across this from the saddle, the main choices to look are simply in generality. And typically you want to do this from on top of the cliff to give you a better view. You can typically look down and see, and you can run along the ridge line pretty easily, and you have a clear line of sight in most cases. Here, it's okay to get a little farther off and look around, but typically you want to stay on top of this ridge line the whole time. Mostly because if you actually fall down, it offers enemies some firing shots on you if there are any. There's not too much more to say on this one other than primarily teams push around the C4, C5 line into this area. This is a very brawling area. And the other main push happens right over at the top of the saddle over there. C3, and they'll typically pour down either on the other side of the ridge to protect from sniper fire straight down into this area right here, Bravo 3. If they're using the cover, they typically go to the other side of Bravo 3. Or if you're pushing from this side, as we'll head back over here, the primary push can happen either from down there pushing in or from over here, and they either go straight down here or right around here and crash into an enemy team, which is usually holed up in this general area here. The other main approach is right into this valley up here. However, that can be a little bit, well, both are very dangerous, but this can be a bit dangerous as you get bottleneck right here and right here. And if they have a firing line set up all the way around here, they can pick apart any assaults that try and peek their heads up. And that's it for Frozen City. As we go into Caustic Valley. Now, Caustic is yet another one where you almost have to employ hill humping tactics unless you are doing very long-range scouting. It actually spawned us in a very good location. Right here is one of the hills that you can sort of scout from. This whole left side, you can pop back down behind cover. As you can see, we can be mostly entrenched here. Little jump jet pops can keep an eye out. And if we want to, we can run over to F2. F3, really, F2, F3. And have a clear line of sight on the approach there. If you're feeling particularly safe from enemy snipers, you can actually just get up right on top of here, use this as cover, and have a clear view of sight on the entire left-hand side of the map, including some of the caldera. If you're scouting from the enemy side, this is very dangerous, simply because there's not a large outcropping that you can spot very well that is used. One option is this hill where Alpha Cataphract is standing right now in D2. If you get on the rear side of this, you have to keep an eye out for snipers that are going to be on the lookout for scouts. But you can kind of peek up and have a good look on this whole side here, as well as this, and depending on your team's location, that can be all you need to cover. If you're looking for another high-up vantage point, you have to move all the way back to Charlie 3 at this hill, which there are often some fun brawls around. This hill, the backside here, offers you a bit of cover. It's not as good of a view since the forest obstructs, but you are definitely farther from the enemies, and you have a clear line of sight both on the left and the right sides. This, however, is typically not as useful simply because your views of both sides are slightly obstructed by that ridge there and that ridge there in the forest, meaning that some mechs will be able to slip through without you seeing them, and you typically don't need to cover both sides, as your team will be most likely focused on one side or the other, unless they're pocketed in that little valley right there. That's the only case where you should really be scouting from that hill. Scouting from the caldera is extremely dangerous simply because you don't know what's going to be on the other side. There could be a 40 Jaeger waiting right there for a scout to pop over the hill and blow you out of the water. Or the air. Often what I like to do is right in here, I'll jump up, skirt over, and pull back. Although I often go from over here instead. If you go up this ridge right here, you can jump, have a clear view on that entire side, and land typically safely behind cover. If you are scouting the enemy from here, you can kind of climb that ridge, jump, make sure you don't go over, and still have a pretty good clear line of sight. However, that's slightly more dangerous as it exposes you to any fire from snipers set up in the center. From the other side, this spot works equally as well since it's a hill. If you're coming, it actually works even better since you can just kind of climb up the hill here, turn off to the side, have a good look of the right side. If I'm scouting from this side, I typically actually like going up on this side because I have a better view of more of the caldera and I can see more of their team. I'm often jump jetting because that offers me a slightly harder to hit arc, slightly less predictable, and it 3 dimensions they have to track rather than just 2. And I believe that pretty much covers it. However, if your team is holding up for a defensive formation, from this side, you can often hide forces behind these 2 hills, which makes them very hard to scout for the enemy team. However, you can post a scout there, and one over there, and that'll give you cover pretty much on any approaches for your force. If you can't see your enemy with forces on either side, one of the best ways to go is D6 up here. There's this hill right here which offers you quick runaway cover. You can go, make sure you don't go out of bounds, pop up, and you can see behind those 2 hills partially. And if you have another scout doing the same thing over in the area we started, F3, over there, you can see forces behind those 2 mountains without exposing your scouts to too much danger. And that's pretty much it for Caustic. River City. Ooh, this is a fun one. River City is perhaps one of the most dangerous ones to scout, simply because any scouting you do away from a group that's entrenched exposes you to enemy fire. If you're out here looking at the water, oh look, anybody set up over there in the citadel can hit you. Even if you're staying within the city somewhat, which is very advisable if you're scouting from here, popping out, taking a look, and then immediately getting back into cover. I typically like to scout around, weave between the buildings, make it hard for them to track you, and generally this area right here is where your team's going to be holding up, and you'll most likely be watching the water and the citadel for their approach. For the left side, going up into Upper City can be very advantageous to a scout. However, it can also be very deadly, as all this cover up here allows enemy pilots to sneak up on you very easily. Yes, you can watch the whole base and stuff, and all the way down to the citadel from here, and have a pretty good idea of their force disposition, but you have a very hard time tracking any approaches through the park, and they can easily run a mech through the park all the way down this line and pop up right in your face and have another one behind you, so you're sandwiched and most likely dead. This works both ways, to be honest, although if your team is on the far side, this is a little far to go, as you're rather exposed to enemies. However, you can typically have a friendly sniper mech or something keeping an eye out for enemy mechs circling around and giving you a clear retreat back to the upper city. If you're scouting the lower city, this often is great because you can get a great clear view jump jetting to the side of this of all the lanes down into the city and see where they have usually at least half their force deployed in defense. This upper base right here is honestly not that good for scouting. It doesn't offer you a very good view of anything that's happening in the upper city or in the back of the park. They can easily sneak mechs up to the upper city, and if you're not paying very close attention or are not right on the edge out here, they can sneak them up onto you into through the water and the park. For reference, this is the park. The only time you might want this is if your team is going to be pushing through Charlie 3 into the enemy, as you can get a nice view of their force from up here, your team pushing from Charlie 2, Charlie 3 to Delta 4. And this gives you a nice view of the enemy, and once combat actually starts, you can go in and start picking at them, or if you have ER large lasers, pick at them from range. And they have and if they break off mechs to deal with you, you can always fall back to the park very easily, where you likely have team support. One of the perhaps dangerous but also safe spots to scout is on top of the citadel. If you have jump jets, you can just climb right up here, wait for them to recharge. Bad jump there. And just climb right up on top here. Now, this is actually very safe because nobody ever looks up here, but the second you fire arty or they have missile locks on them that they can explain, they start looking up here, or even attentive snipers start looking up here. And as you can see, you're exposed to a very large field of fire from this side. It's commonly more used if you're assaulting this lower city area, as you can kind of pop up, get a nice look at their group, move on, pop up, get a nice look at the group, relay your information over comms, and drop back behind cover. If you're scouting over here, yes, you are kind of far down and a little hard to spot, especially with ECM, but any sniper that looks is going to blow you out of the water because you're not going to be moving fast, or you might even be standing still because there's very little room to maneuver up here. Generally, you want to be scouting around the citadel, and sometimes the most effective scouting you can do is simply popping out around corners around the citadel to keep an eye on the enemy team and give your team the extra 3 seconds notice or so that, oh hey, the enemy team is pushing. You do not want to get too far from your team that they can't support you within about 5 seconds. If you are more than 10 seconds away from your team on this map, you're going to die, most likely. One of my... I'm very suicidal, but one of my favorite things to scout is right in here, duck to the left here, and then you can jump up. Oh look, that's how they have their force deployed in there. And then run back along, hide along the bridge, hug this, and get back to your team without being exposed to too much fire. And once you're back here, you can easily just hop back up to the river there. It's a lot harder to do that in the other way. Typically, if you're going to be scouting a group in here, you want to go into the park, which offers you a better escape route with less cover, less enemy sniper cover, because you got a clear view still from right in here, and you got a nice cover all around in here that you can run and make your way back to your team if you need to. And that's pretty much it for River City. Same thing goes for River City Night, although that can be a little harder to spot enemies at long range. Next, we'll be going... Already covered that. Already covered that. Already covered that. Alpine Peaks. Alpine is a really fun one to scout. Now, there are many safe ways to scout Alpine, and there are many dangerous but quicker ways to scout Alpine. It's often a trade-off of how quick do you need the information, and how close do you want to get to possibly 12 enemy mechs. This lower area here is not that great for scouting, but it does allow you access up the 12 line right up to the back. And if your team is assaulting this base, that's going to be up here in the 11 line up down in the city there. Instead of going over there or going to that hill, you can circle around the back here, climb up the easier route than I'm taking, which is right here. You can just follow this little path right up here, up to H12. Do not go H11, that exposes you to more fire than you need to from the H10, I10 hill in case they've set up there. If you go to H12, you can get a good look on some of their snipers right here, have cover to fall back to right over here, which is very hard to scout from over here. Here, you have a good look on there, you have a good look on base defenses, and if you are with a light group, you can actually jump down and cap the base. That was a famed tactic of Jenner's. You'd see a 4-man light group jump down and cap the base that used to be there, and enemy team would have a very hard time responding to them in time. It does not work as well since base turrets were introduced. Typically, enemies these days like to fight around the I-10, H10 hill, so it's actually gotten considerably safer to go this scouting route. But one of my favorite scouting routes of all time on this map is probably the safest way you can scout on Alpine, and that's to crawl up this I-9 ridge here into H9 and D9, sorry, and go into E9. And this is often referred to as the goat path, simply because it is very mountainous, and if you don't have jump jets, sometimes it can be a little hard to traverse. As you can see, it's very mountainous, but nobody ever looks up here for scout mechs. And as you can see from my position right here, I can see the entire map. I can see approaches of enemies down there approaching that base. I can see anything coming up this route all the way to the base. I can see force deployment over there. I can even see a possible force deployment over in there as defense. I can see into the city. I can see down there. The only area I can't see is behind that mountain. And typically, enemies don't go that way. And if they do, you can spot them going from over here, or you can have a fellow scout who is posted up on that mountain over there in the distance, who can see the entire bottom half of the map. With this position here, you can see the entire top half of the map, and you can get to here very easily to either side on assault matches. Not on assault mechs. This takes forever to get to an assault mechs. If you can actually get a sniper team up there under ECM cover, they are incredibly hard to dislodge. Typically, you see it from people up in E7 who have long-range weaponry on skirmish. They'll go right up that path there, and Gauss mech everything in the lower base there. And anything that tries to push up to them just gets shredded because it's so slow of an approach if you're not in a light. If your team is holding up and playing a defensive position over on this side of the map, which is the west side of the map, this hill right here offers great scouting location without being as far out from your team as the goat path, and you still have a really good view on the entire map. This is a better defense scout rather than offense. Defense scout spotting for enemy pushes rather than up there, which is better for spotting clear routes your team can assault through, as this gives you a better view of down below. You still have a pretty good view of the enemy hill right there, and you can have a little bit of view if they actually go up the radio tower. However, that's not very commonly used at all anymore. The other defensive scout location that is perhaps even better is right up on this mountain here, but you have to have good eyes or an advanced zoom module to really make much use of it. You'll see once I get up there. Should have brought my faster spider. If you're actually playing defense, if you put snipers up on this H4 hill, it is a pain for enemies to deal with because they can snipe down into that base, and they've got a really good line. Anyways, as you can see, this is also another great scouting location. You have great clear views here. You can see anything going up over there. You can see anything traveling down here. Force deployment along that ridge, and definitely along the whole undervalley there. This works great with someone paired up on the goat path up there, as you can cover the entire map. Another defensive scouting position is that hill right there. I'm not going to go over to it simply because this section's already been 6 minutes for this. One of the main very dangerous scouting ways is actually going right up to the I-10H10 area. Right at the start of a match, if you're in a scout mech, you can rush up there and get up there before any enemy mediums get up there. Just an enemy light or two is typically up there, and you can actually get a good look on, oh, are they coming up here? Can I hold them off up here with, say, my other 1 or 2 scouts that you have until my team gets here? If not, you typically don't want to go that route. I like climbing up this ridge here. It gives you nice cover here. You can pop up here, see what they have deployed. And I just follow along this ridge line simply because if you drop off to the right there, none of their mechs that are deployed in formation up here can shoot, but if you try and run back that way, they can. And if you climb up here, you can get a good view of what the enemy has deployed up here. Or if you're feeling more adventurous and they have no enemies that you've spotted, if you see an enemy light in your lone run, you can kind of spot what they're doing here, what they're doing here, and have a good look into their base from here. What I like to do when the enemy has set up in a defensive formation in their base city is actually just climb up to the hill here, and it's far enough. Enemy snipers have a hard time hitting you, but you can generally see their rough deployment around the city. Always keep moving and always keep an eye out for arties and airs. This hill is very bad for scouting. It's exposed on all sides. Enemy snipers will be able to knock you out of the water if you go up there. And that's generally it for this. If you're scouting a defensive position here, this hill still works as you just climb up on top. And ta-da, you can see there, you can jump jet up. Oh, they're all traveling down below that road around. Or, oh, they're forming up along that ridge line over there. And that's pretty much it for Alpine. Ooh, Tourmaline. Tourmaline has a lot of dangerous scouting locations, simply because they're also push locations, which makes them often watched by enemy mechs. Okay, we're spotting him. Okay, one of my old-time favorite scouting locations was right in this area here. If you're approaching, you start on that side, you can run a light mech up here, and you could catch them all leaving their base here and tell where they were going. Just with a little jump there, fall back a little, jump again, see where they're going, and fall back. Right back to your team, because then, oh hey, I can tell where their entire team is going. And you saw how long I was exposed to fire there. Scouting around the Stargate is generally discouraged. This is a very commonly watched space. Snipers will be watching it from both sides. If you are going to scout this, scout it from this side over into here. You can kind of roll in here, somewhat under cover of enemy friendly snipers or worm boats, and peek over the ridge there, see what they have. Even come over here, peek around here. Or if you don't have jump jets, what you can do is sneak up back here, take a good look in what they have. I didn't go quite far enough. Have a good look at their backfield and fall back. If you are scouting from this side and your team is holding up defensively in any location on the map pretty much, you can go right up here. It's often watched, so you have to watch out for enemy snipers. But you can see any mechs distributing on that D7 hill over there for defense. You can see any mechs formulating a defensive area here, over here, even over here across this entire time, and you can watch pretty much the entire map. Nothing can get past you if you're observant enough from up here. Even if your team is over there and the enemy team's over here, if you get up here, they're not going to be looking in their backfield for a scout, and you can see all their movements very clearly. And that's probably one of the most safe scout locations. The other safe scout locations is on this southeast corner of the map. I'll go there in just a second. From this corner of the map, you're generally far enough out of enemy detection range, they won't see you or won't notice you, as you're a very tiny dot moving around. But initial scouting, you can kind of pop up here. Oh, they have nothing at the sniper hill thing that's normally manned in the center. Then you come over here, nothing on the right flank. You can kind of move up into this corner here, get another look there, look over here, see if there are any mechs right in there. And then what you go is go over into this F7 area. This is where you typically want to go the long route, so you don't get surprised when you come up out of this hill. But you can go right over in here. And I actually like climbing back up over here. And right here. Very dangerous if there are enemy snipers, like always. But you have a pretty good clear of any mechs moving right here. Actually, right here is great. With the exception that you fall off. But yes, typically enemy force deployments you're going to be looking for around there, in this whole general area here, or snipers posted up here, which likely means they're doing a D7 defense. If they're doing a D7 defense, this is one of the better sides to scout from. The other side has you turning a corner into a bunch of mechs. This is a very similar thing, but you can kind of pop around right here, see if there are any mechs here, and turn around immediately if there are. one of the things, if your team is on this side, you can actually go this route, have a good clear view of the main thing here, main approach. And if you go over into F7, right up in there if you feel like getting stuck with jump jets, but you can keep a good eye on their main approach here if they're going into the side here, and keep an eye out for any flanking maneuvers on the left side. This, however, does not give you access to anything on the far right side or Stargate. The only thing you'll be able to mention is if your team is holed up back there, if they're pushing from over here or over here through an E7 F7 push. That pretty much covers it for safe-ish scouting locations. I covered one dangerous one briefly. And if you're feeling particularly suicidal, I believe is the correct word, for an enemy team coming from the Stargate into the E6 area, you can come in, take a look around, see if there's anything here, jump around, anything up there, anything in the ridge there, anything set up over there to snipe, and then keep on coming out. And this is completely exposed in the open to enemy fire, so don't do it. But you can typically see any defenses set up there. Then quick little jump jets here. You can climb up here and see if there are any mechs up here, although that's typically really not recommended. What you want to do is come in from this approach, as they'll most likely be popping in and out of cover. You pop around to the right, go out to the left, jump jet, and you can see their entire exposed area in the D6 pocket. Or if you're feeling more dangerous, you can jump in like this, and then easily jump out again, or go over here, and jump into the bunch of fire right there if they have enemy sniper mechs. This is very, very, very dangerous, but can get you some very precise information on the enemy team, a good spot to drop a UAV to let your commander know this is right where they all are, and possibly good arty strike spots. And other than really scouting around this ridge here, jumping up, you can kind of see in there, but not very well. What you often see people do is come up here, ridge like that, jump back in, shoot, and back out. And that's pretty much it for Tourmaline. And we're going into Canyon. Canyon, there are no safe places to scout from. You cannot safely scout Canyon, to be honest. Any safe position, there are too many enemy routes which they can just completely bypass your scouting. If your team is going up this river here into a push to this corner here, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, you can typically jump up here, jump on top of that rock, get a good view, enemy snipers that are set up there, and very dangerously actually peek your head around the corner first. However, you peeking your head around the corner means you'll probably take a little less fire than a heavy peeking their head around the corner would. Same thing kind of works from the other side. If your team's holding up in Charlie 4 and you want to keep an eye out for push out here, you can kind of jump up, you get a nice clear view there and there, and you can see any enemy approach with that jump from the left side. My favorite scouting location for both sides is Theta, which obviously anyone who's played Conquest knows Theta means death. This is Theta. This corner right here between Delta 4 and Charlie 3, this is where Theta is on Conquest. As you can see, it is exposed to fire from both sides. Any jump sniper will pick you apart if you stop moving up here. However, the Theta area, if you're approaching it from this side, you can go, oh look, there's enemy mechs over here, or you can go kind of over here, jump up. Oh look, there are enemy mechs in the trench there, or enemy mechs moving along the ridge there. And if you're coming from this side, you can pop up. Oh look, they're starting to form up on the right flank in Charlie 4 corner defense. Or in the same opposite direction, you can kind of jump, go over, pop out in here, pop up, and see, oh look, they're starting to move through the trench there. Generally, you don't see this side of the map used as much for competitive pushes. You see it's used sometimes in pugs when enemy teams hole up in here. One of the main things you have to watch for is scouts coming through this trench or the far trench. And for that, this is probably one of the few semi-safe scouting locations near this radio tower. You get a good view over there. A nice view on the left. You can see anything coming up the left side. However, you don't have a very good view on this far left-hand corner. And again, what I was saying, you can't cover all approaches on Canyon with one mech. You need at least 2, preferably 3 for full Canyon scouting. Simply because you need a mech on this far left-hand side here, keeping an eye on that approach, and that approach. Often best done from this really big spire here, because they can see that corner here, that corner there, popping out, and if they look on their left side, they have a nice view of the approach here. That covers that side. However, the same pretty much can be held true from this tower here. This tower here offers just a little bit of cover with this features here. And you can easily spot enemy movement coming in from that ridge there. Pop over to your right. You can check this whole valley over here. Or if you feel particularly suicidal, you can get right up on top of the right up on top of this and have a nice view on all the approaches at once. However, as you can see, this is very exposed to enemy fire. One of my preferred scouting locations for this side is this hill right over here. You can kind of peek out. Oh, there are enemy mechs. Run around and run backwards and dance and twirl in the air, like I normally do. If your team is pushing on the right, one of the most important things you can actually do is go over to take this ridge here, hope no enemy mechs are scouting it, and what you want to do is pop up right behind this rock here. You pop up behind this rock, you can check, okay, I have a clear line of sight to this rock here. And if you can actually get behind the enemy forts, very dangerous, watch for enemy scouts, but you can get a great view on the rear of their formation, provide detailed information to your team, and if you're feeling particularly suicidal, you can run in and pop a UAV right around here, duck down into the ridge here, go immediately to your right under this archway, then turn left right after the archway and use it to cover your jump jet approach back up here. This rock, use your cover from the enemy team here, and run all the way back to your team after you get down into this trench here. That's going to be your safe route back to your team. Or if you're feeling dangerous and are particularly fresh, you can pop up, get another good look at them, and drop down into this canyon as you go back to your team this way. A lot of canyon scouting, you want to make sure not to get too far from your team. If you are too far from your team, you are likely too close to the enemy team. Generally, you don't want to be more than about 600-800 meters away from your team on this map. 1 grid square, 2 grid squares is typically about it. Generally, to be safe, you only want to be 1.5 grid squares away from your team, so you can have support easily if you need it. And that's it for Canyon Network. And let's see. Ugh, Terra Therma. Terra Therma is a very hard map to scout, simply because you need 3 scout mechs. There are many lanes of approach you can scout on Terra Therma from pretty much any side. What you really want to look for in Terra Therma is long, clear lines of sight. This Echo 8 hill here is generally very good. It's a little bit hard to climb. But this offers a great clear view of any enemy approach there, or any enemies skirting around there. And typically you actually want to be inside the volcano to protect from enemy sniper fire. However, it's hard to see out of the volcano. One thing you can do is actually check the center very easily from E8. Keep an eye out on the lava and make sure you offer sufficient sacrifice to mount Wanahakalugi. Otherwise it will eat your legs. This offers a great out of the center approach. You can come back around the ridgeline here and have a great, okay, they're not going to be sneaking by the side here, as if you go to right around here, you can see clear line of sight along the left approach. This is generally only useful for defensive tactics. Setting up on mountains is not nearly as useful for if your team is planning on pushing. If your team is planning on pushing, you really just need to pick one of the main lanes and go. I like scouting the center first to see if the enemies are going to be inside the center, which is particularly dangerous if they have a very good sniper. However, you can typically get out of the center quick enough that you aren't in too much danger. The main thing you have to watch for is enemy lights. Enemy lights in the center can and will hunt you down before you can escape, or chase you after you do. But from the center, you can get a nice clear line of sight on any of the approaching entrances, and tell your team, okay, there are heavies starting to move in through the F5, E5 entrance, or E6, E5 entrance, or that entrance. And if nothing comes in, you can easily go around the corners and scout various sides. One of the main approaches is the D-line approach. You often have a push of an entire team moving around this line here. And a lot of what your scouting is going to be doing is running around, checking, okay, are they pushing on this side? No, they're not. Turn around. Are they... And you go to areas that you can basically just see, like Delta 5 here. Okay, they're not pushing over here. They're not pushing over there. Go back into the center where, say, my team is, or check the center. If you want to very safely scout the center, you can actually drop down in here, run along the inside, see if your ECM's countered, get a good look up at the ridge line while you can. Keep running around the bottom, and this allows you easy transit to the other side as well. And before you leave, what you're going to want to do is take one last peek up. Okay, are there any enemy mechs starting to come in? No, not that I can see. Go back out the other side. And you see, oh, are there any mechs pushing here? No. Jump to the left here. Enemy mechs over there? No. Go over here, check this ridge here. Oh, look, there's enemy mechs moving down that approach. Fall back to your team. Most of what you're going to want to be doing is as soon as you see an enemy mech, run. On this map, as soon as you see an enemy mech, run back to your team. Because chances are the enemy team will have at least one sniper who will do significant damage to you, or if you're spotted, they will try and cut you off from your group and get an easy kill on a light mech. There are no one of the main areas that you can set up for a defensive scout is actually right up in here. From here, you can see enemy approaches out the center, even if they drop down there. You can see anything trying to cross this lava flow here. If you're going defensive scouting, look for these lava flows because they go all the way to the end of the map. If you can cover a lava flow, you can cover an entire approach. Plus, from here, you can look, okay, there's nothing over here. And you can run over, okay, to this area ridge right here and say, oh, hey, nothing moving down across this line, nothing moving hidden across that line. And you can easily jump up, okay, is there anything in the center? Yes, there's things in the center, run away. That's my favorite spot from this. You can also do something very similar from E7. We'll go there in just a second. As you can see how long it takes me to scout various locations, that it really helps to scout only one side of the map or have your team scout the opposite side your team's moving. If your team is holding up in a defensive position here and you want to keep an eye on the left-hand flank for any potential scouting, right up here works great because here we've got this lava flow I was just mentioning that goes all the way to the edge. And you can easily get a light mech up right in this corner is actually best because they have little rocks for cover here. And they can easily go, oh, there are enemies approaching that way, enemies approaching there, get back in cover. And you have your whole team here covering you and watching the center. If you are running a two-man scout pack, you can kind of set up one scout watching here and one scout watching the center. And this lets your team know, okay, this entire side of the map is covered by these two scouts. And if they come out the center, you can run your scouts out this side. And if they come out here, you can keep your scouts here and run them back through the center in time back to the group. Because they aren't able to climb that from the other side. The most thing you have to keep an eye out for is if they spot you, if they run light mechs through this lava flow to cut off your retreat. Also, this is another lava flow to watch if you're playing defense. You can scout the entire right side of the map from here, as well as the center. So any team hold up here can scout that spot, and the spot I'm standing right here, and make sure nothing gets back to their base. The only way something can get back is that little tiny corner there. So if you're playing a defensive formation in the Echo 7 area, you only need one light mech to scout, and that's for the far right side in the 7 line around B7, back near the base. Typically, though, you don't want them that far from the group, so you climb up this mountain in C7, because if your team's holding up in E7, they can dedicate the lookout points that I said earlier to heavy mechs, sniper mechs that can actually shoot, take advantage of that. But right up here in the C77 hill is one more route that you can keep an eye on the far right hand side, and if you're keeping a very careful eye, you can see any light mechs that are running around that route way back there. And that offers you very quick response times back to base. And it offers this nice spot right here where you can spot them early on approach up the right side. That's about it for Terra Therma. 9 minutes of me running around. You can obviously see why you need multiple mechs to scout that map. Last but not least, we're going to jump into Crimson Strait, and then possibly serve up HPG Manifold as dessert. Crimson Strait, there is one incredible scout location, which is particularly dangerous and both safe at the same time. That is the Central Mountain. You can climb up it from pretty much any side, assuming you have jump jets, and some sides even if you don't. And if you climb up that mountain right here, you can see pretty much enemy deployment across the entire map. The only places you can't see very well are in the enemy city and underneath the garage. The garage being the platform that I shall show you over the Delta 4 Ridge. Now, typically one of the scout locations that you can do is halfway up the mountain here, near the beginning of the map. Kind of skirt around, jump, you can see an enemy deployment there. This does expose you and kind of makes it kind of like shooting skeet, but offers you decent scouting information. This is what's known as the garage, anything underneath or on top of that. And this is the incredible scouting mountain of awesomeness. Now be very careful not to run off the side of the mountain. You have to go a little bit slowly, but always keep moving. Don't stand still. But as you can see, I can see that mech there, I can see that mech there, I can see down into there. And this offers you a great position, even down into the cities here, you can see that. And if you're watching this way, you can see enemies approaching on top, but you can't see anything underneath or in the cave. This is something you need to inform your team to watch. I can't see the cave, keep an eye on the cave. Or I can't see beneath the garage, keep an eye on the garage. Typically, they are one and the same, as the tunnel, which I was calling the cave, right here, connects to the garage. Scouting inside the tunnel is very, very dangerous. You do not want to be in here for the reasons I mentioned back on Frozen City. It's a very confined location for mechs that rely solely on speed. This is slightly safer as it's much wider, as you can get two Atlases side by side marching down it. But this is one area that is very, very hard to watch. Typically you want somebody with seismic, say right on top here, kind of nestled into this little alcove here, watching it on seismic. If you have no one else watching it, seismic is still an incredible scout useful tool. So many people discount it since it can't be used while moving, but one of the things about jump jet mechs is if I am jumping down here, and I'm jumping and turning, right at that landing mark, if I'm watching my minimap, I can see seismic readings. If the enemy team is moving and I'm jumping, I can read seismic movings as I land. Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate this here. One of the possible scouting locations, if you're taking too much fire from up on top of the mountain, from this side, is this hill over in Bravo 3. Bravo 3 is also a great sniper hill, as you can pop up, oh look, snipe all the mechs up top here, snipe some of the mechs down below here, and you have a pretty good view of both the water, the island, and the upper garage. It's one of the safer scouting locations. If you're scouting from the garage side, it's a lot more difficult to get precise enemy locations. Typically, a lot of what you're going to be doing is scouting over the ridge line to keep an eye out for pushes there. You're going to want to go up on top of the mountain to get a view down into the lower city. But if you're not doing that, one of the best scouting locations in the game is actually this island right out here. It offers great cover, great field of view, and you have a lot of warning on enemy mechs trying to sneak up on you because of this huge grid-long water at the shortest spot. If you hole up in this actual D1 side, right up in this alcove here, can then climb up on top of the mountain, and you have a clear view of sight on the lower city. You can see them arranged out here where they often are. You can see into the city where they might be hiding mechs. You can even see a little bit back into the city behind the B3 hill. and all the way down the beeline. However, this doesn't offer you a very good detailed information, as a lot of mechs will be behind cover from there. However, it does let you know if they're moving down the left side, down the beeline to the water, or trying to make a water push, or even if you're coming from the Bravo side and you're defending that base, you can actually come to the island if it's unguarded. Something you want to make sure is unguarded before you go to the island, otherwise they will have a lot of sniper fire. And you can actually see below the city very easily, as well as the garage, as well as on top of the garage. And if you fall back from here, you can take a look around the hill, and oh look, I can see all the way to their base and their city base. And that offers a pretty good location. And that's pretty much this map in a nutshell for scouting. If you're a little bit more dangerous, you can play around at this Charlie 3 corner, Bravo 2 corner, Bravo 4 corner, sorry. Right up in here, even going out into the city if you're particularly adventurous. But what I'm talking about is Charlie 4 corner. This hill right here, you can pop over it from both sides. If I'm popping it over from this side, I climb up just a little. Go to the left, jump, I get a nice clear view of what's in there, and I'm already running back. Or if you're coming from this side, you can run up here, see, oh look, they've got a lot of mechs up top there, and keep running, jump, get another view as you fall back down to cover. Make sure you're hitting your jump jets so you don't take too much leg damage. That's generally how you want to play that hill. The most often scouting location, though, is the top of the hill. However, enemy lights often try to go to the exact same spot to fight. So you get some very, very interesting light battles of people trying not to fall off the mountain while trying to take out the enemy light mech while scouting at the same time. It's a very complicated affair and is very hard to do correctly. And that's about it for this map. And now we go to our last map of the night, HPG Manifold. HPG Manifold is a very fun one to scout and also a very dangerous one. If you're starting on this side right here, what I like to go is to the Bravo 6 hill here. And mind you, you need a couple of jump jets to do this. You should be able to do it with just one or two, but it can be very, very hard to do with just one or two. 3 makes it pretty comfortable. I've got 4 right here. What you want to do, I skirt the out of bounds just a little. On your way back in, jump, and comfortably make that. And now you're up on top of this here, and you can actually just go. This works on both sides. There are hills on both sides that you can jump up. But now you're up on top of this center section here, and you can get a nice clear view of, okay, they're starting to pour mechs in through that entrance over there, or they're starting to hole up there. And you can also run around here, over this gap here. Typically you want 2 jump jets just to be on the safe side. And you can see basically, okay, this is the enemy entrance. They're starting to form up here, moving up to the center, moving down below. One of the things you do have to watch is make sure you stay on the inside wall, otherwise it'll count you as out of bounds. And since you're staying on the inside wall, you really have to watch out for enemy alarms and snipers, as they will try to pick you off. You can get up here by climbing up that hill and running along the inside. Make sure you run along the inside. Alright, as I'll demonstrate here. This is what I call the inside of the wall. You want to run along this line of the wall, and this, see, no out of bounds, no out of bounds, no out of bounds, until you get here. which is why this is one of the most dangerous ways to get up. Charlie 2 is not the best way. If you're trying to get up this way, what I recommend is right here, climb up here, skirt this here, jump onto here, and as you can see, I only got down to an 8 counter. Then you climb along the inside of the wall and not the outside, as if you get to the center of that, it counts as out of bounds. Once more, we're going to be making a jump over to the... This is pretty much standard of all the sides. That is one of the harder sides to get up, simply because you have to go out of bounds. But from up here, you can spot enemy formations, you can jump to other sides, you can say, oh, they're setting up on a base defense here, run away. You can say, oh, they're setting up on top. And it's very dangerous because enemy snipers can and will try and kill you. One of the more dangerous ways is to actually go up to the center here. And you can see, okay, they have mechs deploy here, jump around, okay, they've got mechs set up there, they've got mechs set up there, they're starting to push down, or they're starting to push around. And up top is very dangerous simply because you're exposed to a lot of fire, but you can see a lot of the enemy formations. If you're trying to be slightly more safe in your scouting, you can sacrifice some of your quality of information by going around this outside and using this ridge right here to kind of conceal your mech mostly, and look around, pop up, see, okay, I can see just a little bit of stuff going on here. Never get too high, as getting too high means enemy snipers can see you. And throughout this entire video, you've probably heard me say sniper, 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 snipers, because snipers are the thing that's going to kill you 90% of the time as a scout, other than enemy lights. The chances of a brawler killing you are very, very slim if you play it correctly. But typically, one of the things that you don't want to do is actually go down below. Going down below is another one of those cave things. Very tight spot, very hard to... you can't get any info from down there. I personally like scouting from this side here. If enemies are set up on the other side, you can kind of jump up, say, oh, there's enemies, jump back, without actually committing yourself all the way to enemy fire, or you can kind of jump up here, turn immediately, and kind of jump jet along the side of that. You have cover both above and below, you get a nice look as you get down below, and then you run back to cover, or run back down below. If you're feeling particularly trolling, you can actually go right underneath these. I personally like doing this because oftentimes you find mechs holding up in the corner. You can pop out, shoot, then back up, and oh no, they can't shoot back. And that's just a very trolling way of getting a little bit of scouting information and damage in at the same time. HPG is pretty straightforward. It's a ring with 4 entrances. Typically, you'll have one entrance that has 1 lance come in and one entrance that has 2, simply because of the way it's set up. Assault, you sometimes have it split differently, since 1 lance kind of spawns in the center, while on skirmish you have 2 and 1 very clearly split. One of the main things you'll be wanting to do is very quickly at the beginning of the match, get to the center, watch the 2 enemy entrances, see, okay, their mechs are pouring in this way, they're starting to go up towards the center, run away. Or, I've not seen them come in yet, they're most likely setting up in a base defense. And that gives your team the knowledge, okay, they can safely get into the center now and take it and hold a defensive position if they want to. You really want to keep an eye on both entrances at the start, see where they're pouring in, and try to fall back. If you need to fall back, it's very simple to use those as cover. Then fall back to one side, and if it's like right here, you can even duck down behind cover, get an eye on the center. Okay, they've got no mechs in the center that have snuck up there. Then you go back up here, and before you get back into cover, kind of jump jet up, see, okay, that's where they have enemy approach. And that's really it for HPG Manifold. There aren't a lot of super secret spots like on Forest Colony. And thank you for watching. That will be it for Wolf's videos of scouting locations on various maps. Thank you for watching. Please come again.